What would you do if the people who raised you looked you in the eye at 29 years old and said, "You are not our daughter, not adopted, not switched at birth, but intentionally placed, like a chess piece"? In tonight's cinematic story set in New York City, betrayal runs deeper than blood, family becomes the enemy, and revenge is colder than a Manhattan winter. This is the story of Angle. The first snowfall of December always makes New York look innocent. That's the lie. Angle stood outside her parents' Upper East Side townhouse, watching snow settle softly on brownstone steps and parked luxury cars. The city glowed white under street lamps. Yellow taxis slid through slush. Somewhere in the distance, a subway rumbled beneath Lexington Avenue. It looked peaceful. But inside that townhouse, her life had just been erased. "You are not our daughter." The sentence didn't come during a fight. It didn't come during tears. It came over dessert. Calm. Measured. Surgical. Angle blinked slowly at the two people seated across from her at the polished mahogany dining table. Crystal glasses. Imported wine. A fireplace crackling softly. Manhattan elegance. Her mother folded her napkin carefully before speaking again. "We think it's time you knew." "Knew what?" Angle gave a small laugh. "Okay. This isn't funny." Her father didn't smile. He adjusted his cufflinks, a habit he had whenever he was uncomfortable. "This isn't about adoption," he said quietly. Her pulse slowed. Something in his tone felt corporate, like a boardroom decision. "Then what is it about?" Angle asked. Her mother met her eyes. "You were placed with us." Silence. Angle felt the world tilt slightly. "Placed?" she repeated. "Yes." "As in foster care?" "No." "As in, what exactly?" Her father exhaled. "You were given to us as part of an agreement." The word agreement felt wrong. Clinical. Cold. Angle's stomach tightened. What kind of agreement involves a baby? Neither answered immediately. And that silence, that thick, suffocating Manhattan silence, told her this wasn't about love. This was about strategy. Angle had grown up privileged. Private schools. Summer trips to the Hamptons. Ski vacations in Aspen. Ivy League education at Columbia. Her father was a high-profile investment banker. Her mother chaired charity galas and art foundations. On paper, they were perfect. Her childhood had been structured, disciplined, elite, but affectionate. Not really. Love in that house had always felt conditional, performance-based. Get good grades. Dress appropriately. Speak properly. Never embarrass the family. Now she understood something chilling. She wasn't raised. She was managed. "Who placed me?" Angle asked quietly. Her mother stood up and walked toward the window, staring out at the falling snow over Manhattan. "A very powerful man." Angle felt her throat go dry. "And why?" Her father's eyes hardened. "Because your existence was a liability." The room went silent except for the fireplace. Angle felt something fracture inside her. "I'm not understanding." "You were born into a situation," her father continued, "that required removal." "Removal," she whispered. "You were never meant to stay with your biological family." The words felt like ice sliding under her skin. "Why?" Another pause. Then, "Because of what your real father did." Angle's chest tightened. "What did he do?" Her mother finally turned around. "He destroyed very powerful people." The city outside moved like nothing had changed. But inside Angle's body, something dark began forming. Her entire identity, her last name, her social status, her access, all of it suddenly felt like a costume. "Who is he?" she asked. Her father hesitated, then said a name she recognized immediately. Not personally, but from headlines. Financial scandals. Corporate exposés. A whistleblower. A man who exposed corruption in Wall Street hedge funds 15 years ago, before disappearing from public life. Angel's blood ran cold. That's not possible. It is, her father said calmly. You're lying. Why would we lie now? Because you've been lying for 29 years, she thought. What was the agreement? She demanded. Her father stood, walked toward a locked cabinet near the bookshelf, unlocked it, removed a thin black folder. He placed it on the table in front of her. You were placed in our family under one condition. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. Inside were legal documents, non-disclosure agreements, financial transfers, and one line highlighted in bold. Custodial guardianship in exchange for permanent silence. Angel felt nausea rise in her throat. How much? She asked softly. Her father didn't hesitate. 20 million. The number sucked the air out of the room. $20 million. For her. Not to raise her. To silence her existence. You sold my identity, she whispered. Her mother's voice cracked slightly. We gave you a life. You bought me, Angel snapped. The temperature in the room felt 10 degrees colder. Her father's tone shifted. You were safer with us. From who? From the consequences of your father's enemies. Angel laughed bitterly. So you protected me? Yes. Then why tell me now? Her mother and father exchanged a look. And that look carried fear. Because, her father said quietly, someone is asking about you. Her stomach dropped. Who? We don't know yet. But they know who you really are. The fireplace crackled louder in the silence. Snow continued falling outside like nothing was wrong. But that's not the worst part, her mother said. Angel's chest tightened. What's worse than this? Her father stepped closer. You weren't placed with us just to hide you. Silence. You were placed with us to monitor you. The words landed like a gunshot. Monitor me, she repeated. Yes. For what? Her father looked at her like she was both his daughter and a threat. For traits. Her mind raced. What traits? Your father was brilliant. Strategic. Calculating. He paused. Dangerous. Angel's breath slowed. They wanted to see if you were like him. The betrayal wasn't emotional anymore. It was experimental. I was a test, she whispered. Yes. Something inside her died quietly in that moment. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just extinguished. Hours later, Angel walked alone through Central Park. Snow covered the pathways. Runners still moved through the cold like disciplined machines. Dog walkers bundled in wool coats. The skyline loomed behind skeletal trees. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at it for a long time before answering. Hello. A male voice. Low. Calm. You finally know. Her heart stopped. Who is this? A pause. Then. I'm your father. The world around her blurred. You're dead, she whispered. No, he said. I was silenced. Her pulse thundered in her ears. How did you get this number? I've always had it. Why didn't you come for me? Silence. Then. Because they would have killed you. Tears burned her eyes. You let them raise me. I had no choice. You had 29 years. And you're alive. The cold wind cut across her face. Why call now? Because the people who paid for your silence are collapsing. Her breath hitched. And when powerful people collapse, he continued, they destroy evidence. A chill ran through her. I'm not evidence, she said. You are the only living proof. Proof of what? Before she could ask, a black SUV pulled up beside the park entrance. Two men stepped out. Not tourists. Not joggers. Suits. Intentional. Watching her. Her father's voice sharpened. They found you. Her chest tightened. Who? The same men who paid to own your life. The two men began walking toward her calmly, deliberately. Angle's survival instinct snapped awake. What do I do? She whispered urgently. Her father didn't hesitate. Run. The line went dead. Snow crunched under her boots as she turned sharply. The men quickened their pace. Central Park suddenly felt too open, too exposed. Angle ran, her breath visible in freezing air, heart pounding. The city no longer looked innocent. It looked like a hunting ground. And she had just realized something terrifying. She wasn't just betrayed. She was property. And someone had decided it was time to reclaim her. As she sprinted toward Fifth Avenue, one of the men shouted, "Angle! Stop!" They knew her name. She didn't look back. But she heard something else. Not footsteps. Not shouting. A click. Metal. A gun being cocked. And then, a single shot echoed through the snow-covered park. Everything went silent. And Angle didn't know if the bullet was meant as a warning or a beginning. The gunshot didn't sound like it does in movies. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't thunderous. It was sharp, controlled, precise. And it was close. Angle felt the air shift beside her ear, a violent whisper of death missing her by inches. Snow exploded from a tree trunk ahead as the bullet embedded itself into bark. People screamed. A woman dropped her coffee. A dog barked hysterically. Runners scattered in every direction. New York City, always loud, suddenly became chaos. Angle didn't think. She ran. Her boots slipped on packed snow as she cut across the park's open lawn instead of staying on the path. Behind her, the two men didn't sprint wildly. They moved strategically, spreading apart, flanking. Professional. Her lungs burned. Her heart pounded violently against her ribs. She burst out onto Fifth Avenue, nearly colliding with a taxi. The driver leaned on his horn. "Hey! Watch it!" She yanked open the back door without thinking. "Drive!" she shouted. "Lady, this isn't Uber. Drive!" Something in her voice convinced him. The cab lurched forward into traffic. Through the rear window, she saw one of the suited men calmly lift his phone to his ear. Not panicked. Not rushed. Reporting. Her hands trembled violently. The driver glanced at her in the mirror. "You in some kind of trouble?" She forced her breathing to slow. "Just drive." Where? She didn't know. Her entire life had just turned into a target. "Downtown," she said finally. Battery Park. The taxi merged into Manhattan traffic. Yellow cabs, buses, pedestrians crossing aggressively. Normal city life continued like nothing extraordinary had happened. That's the terrifying thing about New York. You can almost die on a sidewalk. And 5 minutes later, someone is arguing about bagels. Her phone buzzed again. Blocked number. She answered immediately. "You're bleeding," her father's voice said. Her stomach dropped. "What?" "Your right arm." She looked down. A thin line of red seeped through her wool coat sleeve. The bullet hadn't missed entirely. It grazed her. Adrenaline had masked the pain. Now it burned. "I'm fine," she muttered. "You need to disappear." "I've been disappearing my entire life," she snapped. A brief silence. "I never wanted this for you," he said quietly. "You don't get to say that." The taxi sped through Midtown. "Listen carefully," he continued. "The men chasing you work for people I exposed 15 years ago. Hedge fund managers, politicians, private defense contractors. They lost billions because of me. And I'm what? Insurance. Your leverage." The word made her sick. "If I surface publicly," he said, "they lose control of the narrative." "You ruined their empire," she whispered. "I exposed it. And they want revenge." "No," he corrected. "They want silence." Her jaw clenched. I'm done being silent. The taxi slowed near Battery Park. Get off the grid, he said urgently. Use cash. No cards. No social media. No patterns. And you? She asked. I'll contact you when it's safe. When will that be? Silence. The call ended. Battery Park was grey and wind-whipped. The Statue of Liberty stood distant and indifferent across the harbour. Ferries moved slowly through icy water. Angle stepped out of the cab, paid cash, and blended into a small tourist crowd. Her arm throbbed now. The pain was sharp but manageable. Her mind, however, was racing. Everything her parents had built around her, elite education, high-profile social circles, connections in finance, suddenly looked different. Had they groomed her for something? Or were they just well-paid caretakers? She found a public restroom near the ferry terminal and locked herself inside a stall. Carefully, she removed her coat. The bullet had sliced her upper arm, not deep, but enough to draw steady blood. She tore fabric from her inner shirt and wrapped it tight. As she tied the knot, she caught her reflection in the metal panel. Her eyes looked different. Not shocked. Not broken. Focused. A slow realization settled in her chest. They thought she'd run. They thought fear would make her disappear. But they underestimated something. She was her father's daughter. An hour later, she stood outside her childhood home on the Upper East Side again. Not as a daughter. As a witness. Snow had stopped falling. The brownstone looked elegant and composed, like nothing chaotic had happened inside it hours earlier. She rang the bell. Her mother answered quickly. The second her eyes landed on Angle's blood-stained sleeve, she gasped. What happened? You tell me. They stepped inside. Her father was in the living room, phone in hand. His expression darkened when he saw her. You were followed, he said flatly. Yes. I told you this would happen, her mother whispered. No, Angle corrected. You caused this. Her father's jaw tightened. We kept you safe for 29 years. You kept me ignorant. That was protection. That was control. Silence crackled between them. Angle stepped closer. Who were those men? Her father didn't answer. She laughed bitterly. They work for the same people who paid you, don't they? Still silence. Did you know they'd try to kill me? She demanded. Her mother's voice trembled. They wouldn't kill you. Oh, they absolutely would. Her father's composure began to fracture. You don't understand the scale of what your biological father did. Then explain it. He exhaled sharply. He exposed offshore laundering networks connected to political super PACs and defense contracts. He humiliated men who don't tolerate humiliation. And you took their money. Yes. For what? To ensure they didn't erase you. The word erase echoed. How many times have they tried? She asked. Her father looked at her. And didn't respond immediately. That was answer enough. Her stomach twisted. You monitored me, she said slowly. Reported on me? It was part of the agreement. Weekly? She asked. He nodded once. Cold. Clinical. You told them where I went to school. Yes. Who I dated. Yes. Her breath shook. Everything. He didn't deny it. Her entire life. Tracked. Catalogued. Assessed. She wasn't a daughter. She was data. Her mother stepped forward, tears in her eyes. We grew to love you. Angle looked at her. And I grew up believing that love was real. The silence in that room felt heavier than the snow outside. Then her father said something that changed everything. They're going to bring you in. Her pulse quickened. What does that mean? They want to evaluate you directly. Evaluate me, she repeated coldly. To see if you pose the same threat as him. The insult cut deeper than the bullet. I'm not a threat. Not yet. The words weren't comforting. They were a warning. "And if I refuse?" she asked. His eyes hardened. "You don't get to refuse." Something inside her shifted permanently in that moment. Fear burned away. What replaced it was colder, more focused. "Give me the names," she said calmly. Both parents looked at her. "The men who paid you. The companies. The accounts." Her father stared. "Why?" "Because I'm done being managed." Her mother's voice cracked. "Angle, don't." But it was too late. The innocence that once made her compliant was gone. "If they think I'm my father's daughter," she said quietly, "maybe it's time I prove them right." Her father studied her face. And for the first time in her life, he looked afraid. "You have no idea what you're stepping into. Neither did you when you sold me." The words sliced through the room. A long pause. Then, slowly, her father walked toward his office. He returned with another folder. Thicker. He handed it to her. "These are the primary players." She opened it. Wall Street executives. Political donors. Defense lobbyists. Photographs. Financial trails. Shell corporations. It wasn't just corruption. It was empire-level crime. She looked up at him. "You've had this the whole time?" "Yes." "And you did nothing?" "I protected you." "No," she said coldly. "You protected yourself." Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Not her father. She answered. A different male voice this time. Polished. Confident. "Miss Angle," he said smoothly. "We'd like to have a conversation." Her spine straightened. "I'm not interested." "You don't have a choice." She smiled slightly. "That's what everyone keeps telling me." A pause. "You are not your father," the voice continued. "No," she replied quietly. "I'm worse." She hung up. Looked at the folder in her hands. Looked at the two people who bought her. Then said something that chilled the entire room. "I'm not running." Snow began falling again outside the townhouse windows. Soft. Deceptively beautiful. But Manhattan had just gained something far more dangerous than a whistleblower. It had created someone with nothing left to lose. And somewhere in the city, powerful men began realizing their $20 million secret. Had just declared war. Revenge doesn't begin with violence. It begins with clarity. At 3:17 a.m., Manhattan was quieter than usual. Snow had stopped. The streets below Angle's Upper East Side townhouse glistened under amber streetlights. A sanitation truck crawled by. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Faint, detached. Inside her childhood bedroom, Angle sat cross-legged on the floor. The thick folder her father had given her was spread open like a war map. Names. Shell companies. Wire transfers. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Luxembourg. Private equity firms that were nothing more than laundering fronts. And one recurring entity that appeared in almost every transaction. A private intelligence consultancy named Helix Advisory Group. She whispered the name to herself. Helix. Her life had been spiraling around that word for 29 years. She opened her laptop. Didn't connect to Wi-Fi. Instead, she removed a small external drive from her desk drawer, something she'd bought years ago out of pure paranoia after reading about cybersecurity breaches. Maybe paranoia ran in her blood. She smiled faintly at the thought. Her father had exposed them once. She would dismantle them differently. Not with a public whistleblower leak. With leverage. By sunrise, Manhattan was awake again. Coffee carts steaming. Wall Street brokers rushing into the financial district. Tourists crowding Rockefeller Center. Angle walked through it all wearing a long black coat and sunglasses. Her bandaged arm hidden beneath wool. No one looked twice at her. That was the power of New York. You could be hunted in plain sight. She entered a small cafe in Tribeca, Not trendy, not flashy. Quiet. Brick walls. Indie music humming softly. She chose a corner table facing the door. At 8:02 a.m., a man stepped inside. Mid-30s. Beard. Casual jacket. Alert eyes. Marcus Hale. Former Columbia classmate. Now a cybersecurity analyst for a mid-sized tech firm. He spotted her immediately. He walked over cautiously. "You sounded serious," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. "I am." He noticed her arm. "You get into a bar fight?" "Something like that." He studied her face. "You look different." "I am." Silence hung between them for a moment. Then she placed the folder on the table. "I need your help." Marcus glanced at the documents. "Angle. This isn't student loan fraud. This is federal-level corruption." "I know. You realize people disappear over this kind of thing." She leaned forward. "I was disappeared." His expression shifted. "What are you talking about?" She told him everything. Not emotionally. Not dramatically. Factually. When she finished, Marcus sat back in stunned silence. "They monitored you your whole life?" "Yes." "Your parents?" "Yes." "Jesus." She held his gaze. "I need access." "To what?" "Helix Advisory Group's internal servers." He blinked slowly. "You're asking me to hack a private intelligence firm connected to Wall Street power players?" "Yes." "That's prison time. Or history making." He studied her for a long moment. "You're serious." "I've never been more serious about anything." Marcus looked down at the documents again. Then back at her. "If we do this, we do it smart." A flicker of something dark and determined sparked between them. Because this wasn't revenge born from emotion. It was strategy. Meanwhile, 30 floors above Park Avenue, inside a glass-walled conference room, 3 men watched security footage. Angle running in Central Park. Frame by frame. Paused. Zoomed. "She's adaptive," one of them muttered. The man at the head of the table, silver hair, tailored suit, folded his hands calmly. "She's her father's daughter." Another man shifted uncomfortably. "We should have eliminated her at 3. The silver-haired man shook his head. "No. Dead children create sympathy. Grown threats create containment." "And if containment fails?" The room went quiet. The silver-haired man's expression hardened. "Then we escalate." Back in Tribeca, Marcus set up a burner laptop. "No Wi-Fi," he said. "We piggyback public networks through layered VPN tunnels." Angle nodded. "I don't need full access," she said. "Just proof. Financial routing. Internal memos. Something undeniable." Marcus glanced at her. "You're not planning to go public?" "No." "Then what?" She didn't answer immediately. Then said quietly, "I want them afraid." He studied her carefully. "You're not your father." "No," she said softly. "I'm patient." Hours later, Marcus's fingers flew across the keyboard. Encrypted firewall after encrypted firewall. Helix's system was layered, complex, military grade, but not invincible. "Got a doorway," he muttered. Angle leaned closer. On screen, folders began populating. Client portfolios, private surveillance records, political leverage files. And then, a folder labeled A29. Marcus froze. "Is that?" "Yes," she whispered. He clicked it open. Inside were decades of files. Psychological evaluations, academic performance tracking, medical records, behavioral assessments, even transcripts of private conversations she'd had in her own home. Angle's stomach twisted. They bugged the house. Marcus's jaw tightened. They owned the house. She scrolled further. There it was. An internal memo dated 15 years ago. Subject line, projection risk, offspring behavioral assessment. She read it silently, then aloud. If subject demonstrates strategic cognition patterns similar to biological father, contingency removal to be authorized. Her voice didn't shake, but Marcus felt the temperature in the room drop. They were prepared to kill you. Yes. She scrolled further, then stopped. Another file. Encrypted. Higher clearance. Marcus tried to open it. Denied. Need deeper access, he muttered. Try, she said. He worked silently for several minutes. Then, the file opened. The room went silent. Because the document wasn't about her. It was about her father. Status. Active. Marcus blinked. Active. They told me he disappeared. She grabbed her phone. Dialed the blocked number from memory. It rang once. Twice. He answered. You shouldn't be calling this number, he said. You're working with them. Silence. Excuse me. I just saw internal Helix files. You're listed as active. A pause. Then. That's complicated. No, she said coldly. It's betrayal. Angle. You've been in contact with them. To protect you. By lying to me? His voice sharpened. You have no idea how delicate this balance is. Her chest burned. You didn't just disappear, she said quietly. You negotiated. Another silence. Longer. He didn't deny it. Her world tilted again. How much did they pay you? She asked. Enough to ensure you stayed alive. The same language. The same justification. You sold me too. I saved you. No, she said. You saved yourself. Marcus watched her carefully. He could see something shifting inside her. Not grief. Not shock. Resolution. Her father spoke again. You're digging where you shouldn't. Maybe you should have raised me, she replied. Then she ended the call. The cafe suddenly felt too small. Too public. Too fragile. Marcus closed the laptop. This just got bigger. She nodded slowly. They didn't just buy my parents. They bought your father too. She stood up. So now what? Marcus asked. She looked out the window at Manhattan traffic flowing endlessly. Now what? Now she understood something critical. There was no good side. No pure ally. No rescuer. Just power. And corruption. And leverage. She turned back to Marcus. We don't expose them. Then what? We bankrupt them. He stared. How? She held up the folder. They built their empire on hidden money. A slow, dangerous smile formed. We burn the foundation. Marcus exhaled slowly. You're declaring war on billionaires. No, she corrected calmly. I'm correcting a mistake. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A text this time. We know you accessed Helix servers. Marcus and Angle locked eyes. Another message followed. Return home. Alone. And then. A photograph. Taken moments ago. Of Marcus. Sitting across from her. Inside the cafe. Angle's heart slowed. They're watching in real time, Marcus whispered. She stared at the screen. Then looked up calmly. Good. The cafe door opened. 3 men entered. Not rushed. Not loud. Calculated. Angle slipped the burner laptop into her bag. Looked at Marcus. And said quietly. Phase 2. The men began walking toward their table. And Angle didn't feel fear anymore. Only anticipation. Power doesn't panic. It calculates. The 3 men moved through the cafe like they owned the oxygen in the room. Composed. Expensive wool coats still dusted with melted snow. One of them closed the door gently behind him. No shouting. No weapons drawn. Just inevitability. Angle didn't look away. Marcus shifted slightly in his seat. We can't outrun them in here, he muttered under his breath. We're not running, she replied quietly. The tallest of the three men stopped at their table. Miss Angle, he said smoothly, like greeting a donor at a charity gala. We asked you to come home. You never specified which one, she replied. A flicker of annoyance crossed his face. Let's not do this publicly. You already made it public, she said, glancing at the cafe security camera above the counter. You followed me into a crowded space. The man gave a thin smile. You accessed private servers. You've accessed my entire life. A small silence formed between them. Marcus stayed still, but Angle could feel the tension in him. The second man pulled out a chair without asking and sat down. Let's reset, he said calmly. No one wants you harmed. That's comforting, Angle said flatly. Considering someone shot at me yesterday. That was enthusiasm, the tall man replied. She almost laughed. You don't get to rebrand attempted murder. The third man stepped slightly closer to Marcus. And you, he said, voice low, are in very deep water. Marcus met his stare. Then maybe you shouldn't have built your empire offshore. Angle felt it. The shift. They weren't here to drag her out. They were here to measure her. To assess. Just like the files said. The tall man leaned forward slightly. You are not your father, he said. Stop saying that, she replied calmly. You don't know me. Oh, we know you very well. He tapped the table lightly. Columbia graduate. Behavioral economics. Thesis on systemic risk and financial contagion. Marcus's eyes flicked toward her. You read my thesis? She asked. We funded it. That landed harder than the gunshot. The tall man continued. Every internship. Every mentor. Every door opened for you. Curated. Her chest tightened. You engineered my path. Yes. Why? To see what you would become. And what did I become? He studied her. A problem. Silence. Then he leaned back. Walk away from this. Today. And everything continues as it has. And if I don't? The smile disappeared. Then we escalate. The word echoed in her mind, the same word from the Park Avenue boardroom. Escalate. Her pulse slowed. Not with fear. With clarity. You already escalated, she said quietly. You fired a gun in Central Park. That was a message. I received it. A pause. And I'm responding. The tall man's eyes narrowed slightly. You think you can damage us? She met his gaze evenly. I don't think, she said softly. I calculate. The smallest flicker of respect passed across his expression. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Angle noticed. What is it? She asked sweetly. He didn't answer. Instead, he stood. This was your final courtesy. He gestured toward Marcus. Next time, we won't be polite. The three men turned and exited the cafe as calmly as they had entered. The bell above the door chimed softly behind them. Marcus let out a breath he'd been holding. Okay, he said quietly. You didn't tell me your thesis was on financial contagion. She stared at her phone. A notification had appeared. Encrypted email. Subject line, transfer complete. She opened it. And smiled. They just moved $70 million, she said. Marcus blinked. What? From one of their Cayman holding accounts. To where? She turned the screen toward him. To an account that doesn't exist anymore. His eyes widened. You rerouted it? No, she said calmly. I triggered an automated compliance audit. Understanding hit him slowly. You flagged their own laundering trail. Yes. He stared at her. When did you do that? Last night. While everyone was focused on chasing her through Manhattan. She had planted code. Not to steal money. To expose movement. The tall man's buzzed phone suddenly made sense. The 70 million wasn't gone. It was frozen. Under regulatory review. Marcus leaned back slowly. You didn't declare war. No, she said softly. I introduced instability. Outside, sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Not for her. For them. Meanwhile, 30 floors above Park Avenue, chaos wasn't loud. It was controlled panic. The silver-haired man stared at the compliance alert on the screen. How? He asked quietly. No external breach detected, an analyst replied nervously. It appears internal. The silver-haired man's expression hardened. She's not supposed to be this fast. Another alert pinged. Then another. Their financial architecture, built on secrecy and precision, was being audited from within. She's weaponizing transparency, someone muttered. The silver-haired man exhaled slowly. Prepare escalation protocol. Back in Tribeca, Angle finally allowed herself to breathe. They'll retaliate, Marcus said. I know. You just froze 70 million. I destabilized trust, she corrected. He looked at her carefully. You're not doing this for revenge. She paused. The word hung between them. Revenge. Was she? She thought about her childhood bedroom. The monitored conversations. The psychological assessments. The way every success she thought she earned had been curated. They treated me like an asset, she said quietly. So I'm depreciating their portfolio. Marcus stared at her. You scare me a little. She smiled faintly. Good. Her phone buzzed again. This time. Her mother. She hesitated before answering. Angle. Her mother's voice trembled. What did you do? Why? Federal agents are asking questions. Angle looked at Marcus. About what? About your father's old case. About offshore transfers. Her father's voice came onto the line. You're triggering investigations. That was always going to happen. You're destabilizing very powerful people. Good. A long silence. Then her father said something unexpected. They're coming for us. The words hung heavy. Not for you. For us. Her grip tightened on the phone. Why would they target you? She asked quietly. Another pause. Because, he admitted, we're still on their payroll. Her chest went cold. You're still reporting on me. Silence. The betrayal didn't sting this time. It crystallized. I'm done protecting you, she said. Angle. She hung up. Marcus watched her carefully. That bridge, he asked. Burned. Outside, snow began falling again. Soft. White. Deceptively peaceful. Her phone buzzed once more. Unknown number. But not Helix. Not her father. She answered cautiously. A woman's voice this time. Calm. Controlled. You don't know me, the voice said. But I worked with your biological father. Angle's pulse shifted. Prove it. 15 years ago, he didn't disappear voluntarily. He was absorbed. Absorbed into what? A black-budget compliance division. Her breath slowed. You're saying he works for them. I'm saying he works inside them. The room seemed to tilt. And he's not your enemy. Then why lie? Because he's trying to dismantle them from within. Silence. Why tell me this now? Because, the woman replied calmly, you just accelerated his timeline. Angle's mind raced. You froze 70 million. They're tightening internal security. And if they discover he's been leaking information. The implication landed heavily. They'll kill him, Angle whispered. Yes. The woman's voice softened slightly. You're brilliant. But you're not playing alone. The call ended. Marcus stared at her. Well. She looked up slowly. I may have just signed my father's death warrant. Snow continued falling over Manhattan. Beautiful. Silent. And somewhere inside a glass tower on Park Avenue, a containment protocol was being rewritten. Not for Angle. For her father. And this time, escalation meant blood. There's a moment before everything collapses. It's quiet. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just a subtle shift in the air, like the pressure dropping before a storm hits Manhattan. Angle felt it at 11:42 p.m. She was standing on the Brooklyn Bridge, wind cutting sharp across the East River, city lights trembling on black water below. Traffic hummed behind her. Tourists snapped late-night photos. Couples leaned against the railing pretending forever was guaranteed. New York looked invincible. But empires don't fall loudly at first. They crack from inside. Her phone buzzed. Encrypted message. From the woman. They've initiated internal purge. He has less than 12 hours. Angle's breath slowed. Marcus stood a few feet away, watching her carefully. They're locking him down, she said quietly. Can we extract him? Marcus asked. No. Can we expose him? Not without exposing everything. Wind whipped her hair across her face. Below, the river moved steadily toward the Atlantic. Unstoppable. Her father had gone inside the machine. Played a long game. And she had just accelerated it. The question wasn't whether she wanted revenge anymore. The question was she willing to sacrifice him for it? Her phone buzzed again. A new message. From Helix. Return to Park Avenue. Alone. Midnight. Final negotiation. Marcus scoffed. That's a trap. Yes, she said calmly. Then why are you considering it? Because she understood leverage. They weren't inviting her. They were desperate. She looked at the skyline. One building stood brighter than the rest. Glass. Cold. 30 floors high. Helix headquarters. They think I'm emotional, she said softly. You're not. She met his eyes. I'm furious. There's a difference. Midnight in Manhattan doesn't feel like an ending. It feels like something waiting. Angle walked into the Park Avenue tower alone. Marble lobby. Security desk unmanned. Too clean to be coincidence. Private elevator already open. They wanted her upstairs. She stepped inside. Pressed nothing. The doors closed automatically. 30 floors climbed in silence. Her reflection stared back at her in the mirrored walls. Not the girl who grew up curated. Not the monitored asset. Something sharper. The doors opened. The silver-haired man stood at the far end of the glass conference room. Alone. City lights behind him like a crown. You came, he said calmly. You're scared, she replied. A faint smile touched his lips. I'm cautious. 70 million froze 3 more accounts, she said. Audits triggered cross-investigations. His expression didn't change. You're intelligent, he admitted. But you're still one move behind. Am I? He stepped closer. Your father is in a secure location. Her pulse didn't shift. And we know he's been leaking controlled information. There it was. The purge. You're going to kill him, she said. We're going to neutralize liability. Same thing. Silence. He studied her carefully. You forced our hand. No, she corrected. I revealed it. A pause. You have something we want, he said. And you have someone I want. Yes. The air between them felt like a chessboard. Here's the offer, he continued. You stop. You reverse the compliance triggers. You return to your life. And your father disappears quietly again. Alive. Yes. And if I refuse? The silver-haired man didn't hesitate. Both of you become permanent problems. The city lights flickered faintly behind him. Angle felt something settle deep inside her chest. Come. You made one mistake, she said softly. He tilted his head slightly. You assumed I needed money. His brow creased faintly. She reached into her coat pocket, pulled out her phone, pressed a button. Across the city, in multiple financial institutions, encrypted packets released simultaneously. Marcus had been busy. The silver-haired man's phone buzzed violently. Then again. And again. He glanced down. His composure cracked. Just slightly. What did you do? He asked quietly. I didn't leak everything, she said. I diversified it. He looked up sharply. Explain. Fragments of your financial architecture were just delivered to 5 separate federal agencies. None complete. None explosive. But enough to trigger interdepartmental conflict. His jaw tightened. You're bluffing. Check your Zurich holding account. He didn't move. But his silence confirmed it. You can't contain 5 investigations at once, she continued calmly. Not without exposing your internal purge. You'd destroy your father to make a point? She stepped closer. You misunderstand me. The elevator doors behind her opened. 2 men stepped out. Helix security. Armed. She didn't flinch. You think this is revenge, she said. It's correction. The silver-haired man's voice hardened. You're gambling with forces you don't understand. No, she said quietly. I studied them my entire life. His phone rang again. He answered. Listened. His face shifted. Not panic. Calculation. Then he hung up slowly. You split the trail, he murmured. Yes. Marcus had broken the financial web into disconnected anomalies. No single agency could see the full corruption. But all of them would see irregularities. Internal mistrust would bloom. Just like systemic contagion. Her thesis. Applied. You can't stop 5 fires at once, she said. The silver-haired man studied her in silence. You're not your father, he said slowly. No. A faint, dangerous smile formed. I'm the evolution. Silence stretched. Finally he spoke. If we release him, you end this. Yes. You withdraw the remaining triggers. Yes. And you disappear. She paused. Then nodded. I disappear. He studied her one last time. Then gave a subtle nod toward the security men. They lowered their weapons. Location? She asked. He slid a phone across the table. Coordinates. Upstate New York. Private airstrip. They'll release him in 1 hour. She picked up the phone. Turned to leave. Then stopped. One more thing, she said without looking back. If he dies. She glanced over her shoulder. I won't destabilize your empire. She let the silence stretch. I'll collapse it. And for the first time, the silver-haired man believed her. 2 hours later. Snow falling gently in upstate darkness. A private airstrip. A black SUV parked alone. Angle stood outside it. Heart steady. The SUV door opened. A man stepped out. Older. Thinner. But unmistakable. Her father. Alive. For a moment, neither moved. Then he walked toward her slowly. You shouldn't have done this, he said quietly. She studied his face. You shouldn't have lied. A faint, tired smile crossed his lips. You're smarter than I was. No, she replied softly. I just had better data. Silence. Snow gathered on their shoulders. You ended it, he asked. For now. He looked at her carefully. And the cost. She glanced at the dark horizon. Hi. In Manhattan, investigations were beginning. Quietly. Carefully. Helix wasn't destroyed. But it was unstable. And instability spreads. Her father stepped closer. You could have burned it all. Yes. Why didn't you? She held his gaze. Because revenge destroys everything. A long silence. Then he nodded. You're not like me. No. She looked back toward the SUV. I'm not like any of you. Her phone buzzed one final time. Unknown number. A single message. This isn't over. She stared at it. Then deleted it. Snow fell heavier now. Soft. Relentless. Angle understood something clearly in that moment. Power never disappears. It adapts. But so did she. And this time, she wasn't being monitored. She was watching back. 3 months later, Manhattan was blooming with early spring rain. The snow was gone. The Hudson reflected steel-gray skies. Cherry blossoms trembled along Central Park paths as joggers passed beneath them, unaware of how close the city had come to imploding. On the surface, nothing dramatic had happened. No headlines screaming corruption. No CEOs in handcuffs. No public scandal tying together the frozen accounts, the compliance triggers, the quiet federal inquiries. Helix Advisory Group still existed. But it was fractured. Internal audits. Government pressure. Investors withdrawing silently. Partnerships dissolving under strategic restructuring. The empire hadn't fallen. It had begun to rot. And rot spread slowly. Angle stood inside a modest office space in Soho. Exposed brick walls. Second-hand furniture. A view of fire escapes instead of penthouses. A small brass plaque sat on the desk. Contagion Risk Consulting. Marcus leaned against the doorway, coffee in hand. Still feels weird, he said. What does? Angle asked without looking up. Building something legit after destabilizing half of Wall Street. She smiled faintly. I didn't destabilize half of Wall Street. Just the part that tried to own you. She finally looked up. Her expression wasn't triumphant. It was grounded. Measured. You know they're rebuilding, Marcus said. I know. You're not worried. She leaned back in her chair. Worried people react emotionally. And you don't. A pause. Not anymore. Her father had disappeared again. But this time by choice. No secret payroll. No silent negotiations. He sent her one message 2 weeks after the airstrip reunion. You did what I couldn't. Don't become what I was. She hadn't responded. Some relationships don't heal. They evolve into distance. Her adoptive parents. Under investigation. Not publicly disgraced. But quietly audited. Their accounts flagged. Their connections strained. She hadn't visited them. Forgiveness wasn't part of her strategy. But neither was destruction. She let the system handle them. Just like she let the system turn on Helix. Late afternoon rain tapped against her office windows. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She didn't hesitate anymore. Angle speaking. A familiar voice answered. The silver-haired man. You're difficult to eliminate, he said calmly. She almost laughed. You tried. No, he corrected. We evaluated. Same thing. A brief silence. You forced recalibration, he admitted. Good. Helix is restructuring. I noticed. You could have destroyed us. Yes. Why didn't you? She looked out at the wet New York streets below. Pedestrians rushing beneath umbrellas. Cabs splashing through puddles. Life moving forward. Because collapse creates chaos, she said softly. And chaos hurts people who had nothing to do with your corruption. He didn't respond immediately. You're not interested in power, he observed. No. Then what are you interested in? She thought about it. Identity, autonomy, choice, balance, she said finally. Another pause. You'll be watched, he warned. She smiled faintly. I always was. The line went dead. That evening, she walked through Central Park alone. The same park where a bullet once grazed her arm. Children laughed near Bethesda Fountain. A saxophonist played under the archway. Couples rowed boats across the lake. New York felt alive. Unapologetic. Resilient. She touched the faint scar on her arm. A reminder. Not of fear. Of awakening. Her entire life had been curated, bought, monitored, tested. And when she discovered the truth, revenge had felt intoxicating. Burn it down. Expose everything. Make them suffer. But somewhere between freezing $70 million and standing on that airstrip, she understood something deeper. Revenge is emotional. Correction is strategic. She hadn't destroyed Helix. She destabilized it. She hadn't ruined her adoptive parents publicly. She removed their immunity. She hadn't sacrificed her father. She forced him to step out of the shadows. Not perfect justice, but balance. Her phone buzzed again. Marcus. Turn on the news, he said. She frowned slightly. Why? Just do it. She opened a news app. A quiet headline. Buried beneath political drama and celebrity gossip. Federal task force expands investigation into offshore financial irregularities linked to private intelligence firms. No names. No dramatic details. But she recognized the language. The contagion was spreading. Not explosive. Not chaotic. Surgical. She exhaled slowly. You see it? Marcus asked. Yes. You proud? She considered the question carefully. Pride implied ego. Ego led to overreach. No, she said softly. I'm steady. He laughed lightly. That's terrifying. Good. She ended the call. Night settled over Manhattan. Lights flickered on across skyscrapers. The city never slept. It recalculated. Angle stood on her office rooftop, rain misting lightly against her face. 3 months ago, she was property. A monitored asset in someone else's empire. Now, she owned nothing extravagant. No brownstone. No secret offshore accounts. No hidden handlers. Just her name. And her choice. Her phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number. A text. We underestimated you. She stared at it for a long moment. Then typed back. You misunderstood me. A pause. 3 dots appeared. She added one more message. I was never your daughter. Then she blocked the number. The wind carried city noise upward, distant sirens, subway rumbles, laughter from a rooftop bar nearby. New York didn't care who controlled what. It only respected those who adapted. Angle closed her eyes briefly. Breathed in the rain. Breathed out the past. The betrayal had shaped her. The revenge had sharpened her. But the choice not to destroy everything, that defined her. Because power can buy silence. It can buy loyalty. It can even buy a child. But it cannot buy autonomy. That has to be taken. And she had taken hers back. As she walked back down the stairwell into her office, her phone vibrated once more. This time, a private secure alert. Marcus's encryption. She opened it. A single line. Helix internal memo leaked. Containment failure confirmed. She smiled slightly. Not because they were falling, but because the system was correcting itself. Slowly. Naturally. Inevitably. Outside, Manhattan lights shimmered across wet pavement. Beautiful. Dangerous. Alive. And somewhere in a glass tower on Park Avenue, powerful men finally understood something they hadn't considered 29 years ago. The child they purchased. had grown into the variable they could never control.